Hello, everyone, and welcome to the WYN Legal podcast. In celebration of International Women's Day, WYN Legal have collaborated with several inspiring women who will be sharing their journeys with us today. I'm Binal Shah, a senior associate at WYN Legal. I'm really excited today to be joined by Mya Sharma, who is the operations director at Ely Nursery. Mya, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me.
That's okay. Thanks for coming over. So it's about, International Women's Day and, your journey as a businesswoman. And so basically sharing your journey with us and how you came about joining the family business. So if you want to kickstart.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thank you for having me. WYN Legal is an amazing organisation, and I know you've done so much for women in business. So it's an honour to be on your podcast today. So a bit about my journey. The background I've grown up with has partially been entrepreneurial, but partially been corporate. So my mum's a corporate lawyer and my dad's always been an entrepreneur. So he's had loads of businesses. He used to have a travel agent. My granddad actually used to have a factory, which dad helps out in. And I've kind of seen both paths growing up.
Okay.
So mum and dad were really keen for us all to have a uni education and then try out the corporate world and make our own mind up about which route we preferred. So I graduated from university and started working in finance. I was in the mergers and acquisition space. So we were basically working with business owners to help them either buy more businesses or sell their existing businesses. And dad had floated the idea around to me before, like, why don't you just join the family business? And I thought, no, I want to be a corporate girl, city life, like big, flashy London offices. And when I was actually working in M&A, I kind of realised I preferred the entrepreneurial side. So although we weren't working in the businesses, we were working very closely with founders and entrepreneurs. And I thought, rather than just focusing on the finance, I really liked the business side of it all. Because we would learn their stories, we would learn how they'd run the businesses, and that was really piquing an interest. And sorry, I forgot to mention, but all of my clients in M&A were in the healthcare space, so care homes. And something suddenly twigged, and I thought, like, my parents have had a children's nursery my whole life. A care home business model is quite similar to a nursery business model. I know you're providing care for different people, but in terms of the way the business is run, there's somewhat similarities. So that was always going on the back of my head. And my company actually worked on a deal in the nursery space. And I realised I was being hugely interested, saying, I want to learn more. And I thought, hang on, rather than just helping other people buy and sell businesses, why don't I leave and help my family do the same thing with our existing business? So I left the corporate world about 2 years ago. And the dream has been to grow out to have multiple nursery sites.
Okay, that's quite interesting.
So,
that you say your mum is a lawyer still or was?
Yeah, so mum's still a lawyer.
Could have gone down that route.
Yeah, Yeah.
Okay, so if you could talk to us about challenges that you faced through kind of becoming the operations director at Ely Nursery.
Yeah.
What you've learned through those challenges, how you overcame them. If you could share that with us.
Sure, great question. I'd say the biggest challenge was joining an industry that, although it's been my family business and I technically have been involved all my life in the children's nursery industry, I didn't know much about the industry as a whole. So to go from finance, where it's a very connected space, you're encouraged to network all the time, to then operating a children's nursery, which can be quite isolating, you don't tend to naturally come across other owners. So the biggest challenge I faced was creating and establishing a network, which I think, luckily, 2 years into the role now, I'm quite grateful that I've got other owners doing similar things. Biggest challenge was kind of jumping into an industry that I didn't know much about. Like in one way I knew loads about it because it's what I've grew up with, but I didn't actually know operationally how to run a children's nursery. So it was like learning it all from scratch, meeting the right people. And yeah, I also want to say, I was thinking about it on the way here, was there's a bit of imposter syndrome by being considered a woman in business, because I feel a little bit like, oh, but my family set it up and it's not really me. Like I'm not really, running a business, but I've realized I am, and I need to kind of, I need to kind of own that.
Yes, exactly.
Because I remember the event last year when WYN Legal invited me to the Women in Business event. And I remember thinking, I'm not a woman in business. Why am I invited? But I think it's taken me time to realize, no, you're doing everything that like a business owner's doing. So own it. So that imposter syndrome was a big thing to get over as well.
And you've done really well.
Oh, thank you.
And the lessons that you've learned with that. Obviously, working with in nurseries and children, it can be quite rewarding, challenging.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to the listeners today about kind of trying to go about, if there are women who are trying to thrive in the business world?
Yeah.
How they should go about doing that?
Yeah, great question again. I'd say don't be afraid to be vulnerable and honest. Like running any business, there's operational challenges that come about day to day, and you're not going to have all the answers. You need to be prepared to say to someone else, look, I'm going through this struggle. Do you have any help? Do you have any contacts that might be able to help me through this? And that's how you can really overcome. I think there's no merits in trying to like fake it till you make it.
You have to be real about it.
Be real to the right people. That's what I think is important as well. Not everyone wants to help you. That's kind of the sad reality of the world we live in. But know who you can be vulnerable with, and don't be afraid to be completely candid and honest, because that way, you help others by sharing your own story. So yeah.
And just lastly, obviously, theme being International Women's Day, and this year's theme is Accelerate Action towards Gender Equality. Now, what is it that Ely Nursery are doing towards that? Or do you find that there is a challenge, to sort of to go towards the gender equality theme?
Yeah. I think,
how do you find that challenging or not?
Yeah, no, great question. I think it's really interesting because I came from the world of finance, which is a male-dominated industry. And I've grown up with 3 brothers. So I've always been used to being, one of the only women. And it's actually been really refreshing to move into a predominantly female environment. So it's been really nice because I feel in myself, and I think others in the nursery space might feel similar. I don't face that like, oh, I'm the only woman. Like, it's very real. Like, we can talk about things at work which would never have come up in finance, like, periods, like something basic, menopause, like things you try and hide in the world of finance. So it's been nice to have that switch
freedom.
But I'd say if anyone's listening is not in that environment, because I realize it's one of the few industries that is female dominated, I'd say don't be afraid to bring some of that womanness and that realness to your workplace. It doesn't have to be a female dominated environment for you to do that. Even if you're in a male dominated setting, bring the realness, because at the end of the day, women, we juggle so much. I'm not even a mother, but I can look at my mum, who's a lawyer, raising 4 kids, going home, making the rotis, cooking for everyone.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
It's everything.
It's not about juggling.
So bring that realness to your workplace as well.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. I think that was great. You've really inspired us all to kind of go out there, make it your own. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Okay, thank you all for joining. Tune in for the next episode when I'll be speaking to another inspiring woman.